Part 1, Introduction, the Radical Truth about Prayer and Prosperity. Could the very act of praying for money, for financial breakthrough, paradoxically be the precise reason our blessings remain elusive? This is a question that may seem jarring, even counterintuitive, to many who have faithfully knelt in supplication, pouring out their hearts to God for provision. We are taught to ask, to seek, to knock, and indeed, these are divine injunctions that must never be neglected. Yet, what if our understanding of how God answers these prayers, particularly in the realm of prosperity and financial abundance, has been fundamentally incomplete, or even skewed by worldly perspectives? For generations, a common misconception has quietly taken root within the faith community, that the path to financial abundance is paved primarily with fervent requests, a continuous cycle of asking God to simply bestow wealth upon us, as if it were a cosmic lottery ticket or a miraculous windfall. This perspective often reduces our magnificent, all-sufficient Father to a celestial vending machine, where enough petitions will eventually dispense the desired financial outcome. This narrow view, however, inadvertently fosters a passive dependency, where we remain in a posture of perpetual need, rather than stepping into the empowered role of co-creators and faithful stewards that God intends for us. It creates a mindset of scarcity and persistent lack, rather than cultivating the fertile ground for true, lasting, and God-honoring prosperity. But what if the biblical paradigm for wealth is fundamentally different? What if true, God-honoring prosperity is not something we beg for from a posture of desperation or scarcity, but rather something we strategically attract, by diligently building the right vessel to receive and responsibly manage it? This, I contend, is the profound, often overlooked truth, what some might even call a Jewish secret or, more accurately, a core biblical principle, deeply woven into the fabric of Scripture. It's the radical truth about prayer and prosperity, that God is less interested in us merely asking for money to fall from the sky, and far more invested in us becoming the kind of people, with the right character, wisdom, and actionable plans, into whom He can pour His abundance, knowing it will be stewarded for His glory and for the blessing of many. It's about building capacity, readiness, and a divinely aligned framework for financial flow. In the coming sessions, we will embark on a transformative exploration of timeless principles, hidden in plain sight within the sacred texts, that align perfectly with God's design for abundance. We will move beyond superficial interpretations to uncover how true prosperity is inextricably woven into the very fabric of creation, divine mandate, and redemptive purpose. This journey will challenge conventional wisdom, dismantle limiting beliefs rooted in a scarcity mindset, and empower you with practical, actionable insights that transcend mere theory. We will draw profound parallels and learn invaluable lessons from the lives of biblical titans of faith and finance, figures like Abraham, who became exceedingly rich as he walked in obedient covenant with God, his wealth tied directly to his divine calling and generosity. We will examine Joseph, whose divine wisdom elevated him from the depths of slavery to become the economic overseer of an empire, strategically managing resources to save entire nations from famine, demonstrating that preparedness and insight are key. And we will explore the extraordinary example of King Solomon, whose unparalleled wisdom brought him unimaginable wealth and honor, all as a byproduct of seeking God first, illustrating that when God is sought above all else, all these things are indeed added. Their stories are not mere historical anecdotes of ancient prosperity, they are living blueprints for understanding and applying the principles of divine abundance that are available to us today. This session, and indeed this entire series, is designed to instigate a fundamental paradigm shift within you. We will transition together from a mindset of scarcity, lack, or passive waiting to one of empowered stewardship and purposeful building. We will learn not just how to pray for financial provision, but how to strategically align our actions, our minds, and our spirits with God's unchanging principles, thereby creating the very conditions for divine blessing to flow. Get ready to rethink everything you thought you knew about prayer, prosperity, and your true potential in God's economy. Part 2: Deconstructing Desperation: Why Begging for Money Fails God's Test. In our last session, we bravely confronted the radical notion that our very prayers for money might, in some crucial way, be hindering the flow of God's blessings. We challenged the deeply ingrained misconception that financial abundance is simply something we beg for, introducing the transformative idea that wealth is often attracted by the diligent building of a right vessel to receive it. Now, let us delve deeper into this counterintuitive truth, deconstructing the common practice of praying from a posture of desperation and exploring why this approach, though well-intentioned, often fails God's test and proves counterproductive to true prosperity. The first critical insight comes from the very words of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 8. He instructs us, "Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him." This profound statement immediately disarms the notion that our prayers for money are primarily about informing God of our plight or convincing Him of our needs. He is omniscient. He knows every detail of our financial situation, every bill due, every aspiration for our families. Therefore, if God already knows, then the purpose of our prayer isn't to impart information, but to align our hearts, our will, and our capacity with His. When we pray for money from a place of desperation, a posture often characterized by fear, anxiety, and a feeling of acute lack, we inadvertently engage in a powerful spiritual and psychological dynamic that works against us. Unconsciously, such prayers often serve to affirm the very lack we are trying to escape. Every tear, every desperate plea, every internal groan of, "I don't have enough," sends a powerful message, not just to ourselves but to the spiritual atmosphere around us. This energy of perceived scarcity, rather than attracting abundance, tends to attract and perpetuate more of the same. It's a reinforcing loop. Desperation breeds lack, and lack fuels further desperation. To illustrate this, consider the analogy of a critical business meeting. Imagine approaching a potential investor or a powerful executive, not with a well-thought-out proposal, a clear understanding of your needs, or a vision for mutual benefit, but with a posture of abject desperation, begging, pleading, exhibiting panic, and conveying an absolute lack of faith in your own capacity or the value you offer. Such a stance, regardless of the genuine need, inherently lacks respect for the other party and projects an image of incompetence and inability. It communicates that you are not ready to be entrusted with significant resources. While God is infinitely more compassionate than any human executive, divine principles still operate. God responds to faith, to certainty, and to a spirit of confident expectation, not to fear or desperation. He is looking for stewards who believe in His provision and are prepared to manage it, not those who are overwhelmed by its absence. This leads us to a crucial reframe: money, in God's economy, is not primarily a handout, it is a byproduct. It is a byproduct of value created, of problems solved, of service rendered. The book of Proverbs, chapter 22, verse 29, offers a timeless principle: do you see a man skillful in his work? He will stand before kings, he will not stand before obscure men. Skill, diligence, and the capacity to produce value are recognized and rewarded. Money often flows to where value is created and stewarded effectively. When we beg for money, we are often asking for the byproduct without addressing the underlying conditions of value creation and responsible stewardship. Therefore, the profound shift in our prayer life, particularly concerning prosperity, is to transition from mere requests for cash to powerful declarations of alignment with God's will and a fervent desire for increased capacity to manage and multiply. Instead of praying, "God, give me money," our prayers should become, "Father, reveal to me the value I am meant to create. Grant me the wisdom to discern opportunities, the skill to execute, and the discipline to steward what you entrust to me." This aligns with the teaching of Jesus in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 16, verse 10, where he states, "One who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much, and one who is dishonest in a very little is also dishonest in much." Our prayer should be for the capacity to be faithful with the little, so that God can trust us with the much. Consider the example of King Solomon once more. When God offered him anything he desired, Solomon did not ask for wealth or power. Instead, in 1 Kings, chapter 3, verse 9, he prayed, "Give your servant therefore an understanding mind to govern your people, that I may discern between good and evil." He prayed for wisdom, for capacity, for the ability to fulfill his divine assignment. And as we know, God not only granted him the wisdom but added immeasurable riches and honor besides. Solomon's prayer was not for the thing, but for the capacity to handle the thing, and the wisdom to acquire it. In essence, authentic prayer for prosperity isn't about demanding from God what we think we lack. It's about aligning our hearts with His perspective, cultivating a spirit of faith and readiness, and actively praying for the wisdom, character, and capacity to become the person God can trust with abundant resources for His kingdom purposes. It's about building the vessel, so that when the blessings flow, we are not only ready to receive them but also equipped to steward them well, ensuring they serve a greater, lasting purpose. This fundamental shift from desperation to empowered alignment is the crucial first step on our journey to true, God-honoring wealth. Part 3, The Patriarchs' Blueprint, God's Intentional Design for Covenant Wealth. In our previous discussion, we confronted the radical truth that praying from a posture of desperation can be counterproductive, and that God responds to our desire for increased capacity and alignment, not just our pleas for cash. We established that true wealth is attracted when we diligently build the right vessel to receive and steward it. Now, let us turn to the foundational narratives of faith, the lives of the patriarchs, to see this principle exquisitely illustrated. Here, we uncover the profound truth that wealth was not an accidental byproduct for these giants of faith, but an integral and intentional part of God's covenant design for His chosen people. Consider Abraham, the father of faith. The very beginning of his journey with God, outlined in Genesis, is laced with divine promises that extend far beyond spiritual blessings to encompass tangible, material abundance. Genesis, chapter 13, verse 2, explicitly states, "Now Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver, and in gold." This was not a side note, it was a clear demonstration of God's intention to bless His covenant partners not just spiritually, but also materially. Abraham's prosperity was inextricably tied to his purpose, his unwavering obedience, and his wise resource management. His wealth was not accumulated through exploitation or greed, but as a direct result of God's favor and His faithfulness in following divine instruction. It enabled him to travel, to maintain his household, to be generous, and ultimately, to be a powerful witness of God's provision in a pagan world. This intentional design for covenant wealth flows through the generations. Isaac, Abraham's son, despite facing famine in his time, sowed in the land and, as Genesis, chapter 26, verse 12 recounts, reaped in the same year 100-fold. The Lord blessed him. And Jacob, though he began with nothing but a staff, through divine insight and shrewd, ethical livestock management, became exceedingly prosperous, as detailed in Genesis, chapter 30. Their prosperity was a clear pattern, a blueprint confirming that God's desire is for His people to thrive, not just survive. Perhaps one of the most compelling and detailed analyses of this intentional design is found in the life of Joseph. His story is not merely one of personal triumph over adversity, it is a masterclass in divine economic strategy. Joseph didn't just interpret Pharaoh's dream about the coming famine, he proceeded, under divine guidance, to build one of the most powerful and efficient economic systems in ancient history. He understood that God's revelation required human action, intelligent design, and diligent execution. Genesis, chapter 41, verses 48 and 49, describe his strategic actions. And he gathered all the food of the 7 years when there was abundance in the land of Egypt and stored up food in the cities. He stored up in every city the food from the fields around it. Joseph stored up grain in such abundance that he stopped measuring it, for it was beyond measure. This was not accidental accumulation, it was a divinely inspired plan implemented with meticulous financial intelligence, organizational genius, and unwavering discipline. Joseph's wealth and power were a direct outcome of his capacity to solve a massive societal problem through God-given wisdom and practical economic stewardship. His example proves that prosperity flows to those who are faithful to steward divine insight and actively create solutions that benefit many. Beyond mere monetary value, the wealth of these patriarchs encompassed far more: their influence, their networks, and their ability to create lasting value. Consider Abraham standing in the land when he needed to purchase a burial plot for Sarah, as described in Genesis, chapter 23. The Hittites, local rulers, addressed him with profound respect, calling him a prince of God among us. This demonstrates that Abraham's wealth was not just material, it included significant social capital, reputation, and relational influence that enabled him to conduct significant transactions and command respect. True wealth, therefore, is holistic. It encompasses robust relationships, a clear vision, and the cultivated ability to create and exchange value in ways that benefit others. This patriarchal approach to wealth stands in stark contrast to many modern approaches. Today, money is often chased as an end in itself, disconnected from purpose, character, or service. The patriarchs, however, operated with an entrepreneurial mindset rooted in faith. Their prosperity flowed as a byproduct of seeking God first, walking in obedience, and actively applying wisdom to solve problems and serve their communities. Their wealth was not just for their personal consumption, it was instrumental in fulfilling their covenant destinies and blessing the nations. This fundamental truth is powerfully encapsulated in Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 12, where God promises His obedient people, "The Lord will open to you His good treasury, the heavens, to give the rain to your land in its season and to bless all the work of your hands. And you shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow." This is God's intentional design for His people, to be conduits of blessing, to be in positions of financial strength, to lend rather than borrow, because prosperity flows where faith and action meet in strategic partnership with divine purpose. This ancient blueprint remains relevant, providing a powerful model for us to cultivate a life of covenant wealth today. Part 4: Building your vessel, creating the capacity for divine increase. We have firmly established that God's intention for His covenant people is not scarcity, but abundant prosperity, a prosperity that is tied to purpose, obedience, and wise stewardship, as exemplified by the Patriarchs. This leads us to a crucial concept, one that bridges the gap between divine promise and tangible manifestation, the principle of building your vessel. Divine blessings, particularly financial ones, require a structure, a container, a system to hold them, manage them, and allow them to multiply. Without this vessel, even the greatest outpouring of God's favor can simply spill away, leaving us no better off than before. Consider the powerful story of the widow and the oil in 2 Kings, chapter 4. This woman, in desperate straits, cries out to the prophet Elisha. His instruction to her is profound: go, borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbors, empty vessels, do not gather just a few. And when you have come in, you shall shut the door upon yourself and your sons, and pour it into all those vessels, and set aside the full ones. The miracle that followed was astounding. Her small amount of oil supernaturally multiplied, filling every borrowed vessel, until there were no more vessels to fill. The crucial lesson here is crystal clear: the blessing was limited not by God's power, but by the number and capacity of the vessels she prepared. God was ready to pour, she needed to create the space to receive. In today's financial context, what does this vessel represent? It is multifaceted. A well-structured business, with clear processes, ethical practices, and a defined value proposition, is a vessel. A disciplined budget, meticulously planned and faithfully adhered to, is a vessel, directing resources with intentionality rather than allowing them to dissipate. A strategic investment portfolio, carefully researched and managed, is a vessel designed for multiplication. Even healthy financial habits, like consistent saving, prudent spending, and regular tithing, are integral components of this vessel. Without these internal structures, these systems of management and multiplication, any divine blessing, no matter how great, will simply spill away. It's like pouring an ocean of water onto a flat, uncontained surface. It spreads out and eventually evaporates, never pooling deep enough to sustain life. We can draw another powerful analogy from the story of Noah's Ark. God provided the divine blueprint and the raw materials, the trees, the vision, the command. But Noah and his family had to do the arduous work of building the ark itself. God didn't magically teleport an ark into existence. He provided the means and the instruction, but humanity had to construct the vessel that would save them. Similarly, God provides the wisdom, the opportunities, the favor, and even the initial resources, but it is our responsibility to build the financial vessel, the structures, habits, and systems that will hold and multiply His blessings. This leads to a direct challenge for each of us. How strong is your current financial vessel? Do you have a clear plan for your money, or does it simply come and go without direction? Are you actively stewarding the resources God has already placed in your hands, or are they being wasted through impulsive spending, lack of foresight, or unmanaged debt? God tests our capacity, and He rewards those who demonstrate faithfulness in the little, preparing them for the much. The parable of the talents, found in Matthew, chapter 25, verse 14, starkly illustrates this. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. God observes how we manage what we already possess before entrusting us with more. He is looking for those who will multiply, not just consume. So, what are the actionable steps for building a stronger vessel? 1. Create a budget reflecting values. Move beyond simply tracking expenses. Design a budget that is a tangible expression of your kingdom values. Allocate funds intentionally for tithing and giving, for savings, for investments, and for serving others, alongside your necessities. This turns your budget into a vessel for purpose. 2. Start a side business or develop a high-income skill. If your current income stream feels limited, actively work on creating additional channels. This might be launching a small, God-approved side business that solves a problem or offers a valuable service. Or, invest in yourself by acquiring a high-income skill that increases your value in the marketplace. This builds a new income pipe into your vessel. 3. Study market dynamics and investment principles. Just as Joseph studied the agricultural cycles, commit to understanding the dynamics of your chosen industry or the principles of various investment vehicles. Knowledge is a crucial component of a strong vessel, enabling wise decision-making and strategic deployment of resources. 4. Automate savings and investments. Make the act of filling your vessel automatic. Set up automatic transfers to savings accounts, investment funds, or even a giving fund. This removes the need for conscious decision-making each time, ensuring consistent growth. Building your financial vessel is a continuous process of learning, discipline, and intentional action. It is the active demonstration of your faith, proving that you are not just asking for a blessing, but preparing yourself to receive, steward, and multiply it for God's glory and the blessing of many. This is the divine partnership that unlocks the flow of increase. Part 5. Desire versus lack. Cultivating the mindset of God's entrepreneurs. We have just illuminated the critical truth that divine blessings require of a vessel, a well-structured plan, disciplined habits, and wise investments, to hold and multiply them. This concept naturally leads us to a deeper exploration of the internal landscape, our mindset. For even the most meticulously built vessel will remain empty if the underlying motivations are misaligned with God's principles. Here, we must carefully differentiate between desire rooted in desperation and desire driven by divine vision. The Bible acknowledges the power of desire. Proverbs, chapter 13, verse 12, wisely states, "Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a desire fulfilled is a tree of life." Clearly, desire itself is not inherently negative, it is a powerful motivator. The critical distinction lies in the source and orientation of that desire. A mindset of, "I don't have enough," fueled by a constant internal narrative of lack, generates fear, anxiety, and profound stress. This desperate posture invariably leads to poor financial decisions, impulsive spending, chasing get-rich-quick schemes, neglecting long-term planning, or making choices out of panic rather than wisdom. This fear-driven state unwittingly closes the very doors God intends to open, as it operates outside of faith. Contrast this with the mindset of what I call God's entrepreneurs, individuals who operate not from a place of scarcity or desperation, but from a foundation of faith, abundance, and divine purpose. These are individuals whose primary desire is to honor God, to serve humanity, and to build something of lasting value. Their focus is not on what they lack, but on the resources and opportunities God has already provided, and the potential for multiplication through wise stewardship. We saw this exemplified in King Solomon. When God offered him anything, his desire was not for riches, but for wisdom, an understanding heart to judge your people, that I may discern between good and evil, as recorded in 1 Kings, chapter 3, verse 9. His desire was rooted in his calling, in his purpose to lead God's people. And because his primary desire was divinely aligned, God added not only the requested wisdom but also, as 1 Kings, chapter 3, verse 13 states, both riches and honor, so that there shall not be anyone like you among the kings all your days. Solomon's story powerfully illustrates that when our desire is for God's purposes and for the capacity to fulfill them, abundance is attracted as a natural byproduct. This mindset shifts our focus from chasing money as an idol, to building and stewarding systems that allow money to work for us, serving as a tool for kingdom advancement. Applied to business and entrepreneurship, this means shifting focus from a constant worry about profit margins to a relentless dedication to value creation. Consider the baker who truly enjoys baking and is committed to making the freshest, most delicious bread possible, consistently serving his community. His desire is to create value, to produce an excellent product that people genuinely need and enjoy. As he focuses on this value creation, customers flock, reputation grows, and profits naturally follow. His primary motivation isn't to extract money, it's to provide excellent service and a superior product. This is a kingdom principle: give, and it will be given to you. Luke 6 verse 38, give value, and value will return to you. Conversely, fear-driven behavior, like the servant in the parable of the talents who buried his master's money, thinking, as he confessed in Matthew, chapter 25, verse 25, I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground, leads to stagnation and loss. Fear paralyzes action and prevents multiplication. To cultivate the mindset of God's entrepreneurs, I challenge you to actively reframe your thinking. Engage with resources that challenge conventional scarcity thinking, such as books like Rich Dad Poor Dad, which vividly illustrates the mindset differences between those who work for money and those who make money work for them. More importantly, immerse yourself in the wisdom literature of the Bible, particularly the book of Proverbs, which is replete with practical insights on diligence, planning, generosity, and wise stewardship, all rooted in a framework of divine abundance. Shift your internal dialogue from "I need money" to "I create value." Focus your desire on what you can build, what problems you can solve, and how you can serve others, rather than dwelling on what you perceive to lack. Let your desire be connected to a clear, God-given vision, a vision not just for personal gain, but for kingdom impact. And let that vision be continually fueled by gratitude for what you already possess. This radical mindset shift, from a posture of lack to one of abundant value creation, guided by divine wisdom and fueled by purposeful desire, is a non-negotiable step in aligning yourself with God's design for true, lasting prosperity. We've explored the critical role of mindset, moving from desperation to purposeful desire, recognizing that our internal posture profoundly shapes our financial reality. But how do we actively cultivate this abundance mindset and expand our capacity to receive the immeasurably more that God desires to pour into our lives? The answer lies in two powerful, interconnected principles: the profound practice of gratitude and the audacious discipline of big thinking. Let us first delve into gratitude. Gratitude is far more than a polite sentiment. It is a powerful spiritual magnet for blessings. When we choose to express thanks, particularly to God, for what we already possess, we align ourselves with His abundant nature. We enter His presence, as Psalm 100, verse 4, instructs us, enter into His gates with thanksgiving, and into His courts with praise. Be thankful to Him, and bless His name. This isn't just an instruction for corporate worship on Sunday. It is a daily blueprint for living in a posture of acknowledgement and appreciation for God's goodness in every facet of our lives, including our finances. When we consistently thank God for the provision we have, however small it may seem, we are essentially expressing profound trust that He is indeed our source, and that He is faithful to provide even more. This posture of thankful trust opens financial doors that frantic, fear-driven prayers for money, rooted in perceived lack, simply cannot. Gratitude counters scarcity by affirming sufficiency and anticipating greater abundance. Hand in hand with gratitude is the discipline of big thinking. The Apostle Paul, in his letter to the Ephesians, chapter 3, verse 20, articulates this divine capacity so powerfully. Now to Him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us. This verse is not just an encouraging platitude, it is a revelation of God's limitless power and our potential access to it. While God's capacity is infinite, it is often our own imagination that limits what He can accomplish through us, for us, and with us. Small thinking, a mindset fixated on merely surviving, on just making ends meet, or on barely covering expenses, creates a small container. It limits the very vessel we are called to build. If our vision extends no further than the next paycheck, then that is precisely the extent of the provision we often experience. We must dare to stretch our vision, to dream in alignment with God's, immeasurably more, believing that He is capable of far greater things than our current circumstances dictate. So, how do we practically apply gratitude and big thinking in our financial and business lives? For employees, gratitude can be expressed by acknowledging the blessing of your current job, even if it feels mundane. Thank God for the income, the skills you are gaining, and the opportunities for service. Big thinking for an employee means actively learning new skills, seeking to add value beyond your job description, and envisioning a career trajectory that is not merely incremental but exponential, perhaps leading to new ventures or significant promotions. It's about seeing your current role as a stepping stone, a training ground for greater responsibility and influence. For business owners, practical gratitude involves consistently thanking God for your clients, your employees, your vendors, and every resource that flows through your business. It means recognizing them as blessings, not just transactions. Big thinking for a business owner involves moving beyond daily operations to strategically plan for significant growth, market expansion, new product development, or innovative service offerings. It's about asking, how can this business bless more people? How can it solve bigger problems? How can it become a greater conduit of kingdom impact? This vision-driven approach moves beyond mere profit to purposeful prosperity. Let's consider concrete examples. Practical gratitude extends to the foundational act of tithing, acknowledging God as the ultimate source of all our increase. It involves cultivating a daily practice of verbally expressing thanks for every provision, from the smallest to the largest. It's thanking God for difficult clients, seeing them as opportunities for growth in patience and problem solving. Big thinking means regularly carving out time, perhaps weekly, for brainstorming new ideas, for vision casting, for studying the strategies of top entrepreneurs, not just those mentioned in secular works like Think and Grow Rich, but also biblical giants and modern Christian leaders who have built impactful, God-honoring enterprises. It's about daring to ask the what if questions that push the boundaries of your current operations. Consider again the life of Joseph. Before he stood before Pharaoh, he was in prison. He was certainly in a position of lack. Yet, in that confined space, he did not complain about his circumstances. Instead, he used his God-given gift to serve those around him, interpreting the dreams of the chief butler and baker, as detailed in Genesis, chapter 40. This was an act of gratitude for his gift, an expression of excellence in his current, limited sphere, and a profound act of serving others where he was. It was this act of faithful service, in a seemingly insignificant situation, that ultimately opened the door to Pharaoh's palace in Genesis, chapter 41, positioning him for an unprecedented level of influence and wealth. Joseph didn't wait for the big platform. He cultivated gratitude and operated with a big-picture mindset even in the smallest of circumstances, using his gifts to bless others. I challenge you today, stop complaining about lack. Such complaints only reinforce the very thing you wish to escape. Instead, focus on actively opening doors for others through your service, your generosity, and the value you create. Dare to dream bigger for your finances, for your business, and for the impact you can make in the world. When gratitude fills your heart and big thinking expands your vision, you create the fertile ground and the expansive vessel for God to do immeasurably more, unlocking exponential business success and enabling you to live a life of profound purpose and abundance. Part 7. The Trap of Envy and Complaining, Silent Killers of Wealth and Opportunity. We've illuminated the immense power of gratitude and big thinking as magnets for divine increase, expanding our capacity to receive God's abundance. Now, however, we must pivot to confront two insidious forces that operate as silent killers of wealth and opportunity in the lives of countless individuals, often without their conscious awareness: the destructive traps of envy and complaining. These aren't just minor character flaws, they are spiritual and psychological barriers that actively repel the very blessings we seek. Envy, the resentful longing for what someone else possesses, is a particularly venomous emotion in the context of wealth and success. The Apostle James, in his epistle, chapter 3, verse 16, provides a stark warning: "For where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there." Notice the profound consequence: disorder, or confusion, and every evil practice. When we allow envy to take root in our hearts, we are implicitly telling God, "I don't believe you can bless me in a similar or even greater way. I resent that you bless them, and I feel somehow diminished by their success." This posture directly contradicts faith in God's limitless provision and His desire to bless us according to His good pleasure. It is a spiritual act of pushing away the very opportunities and blessings that God might intend for us, as it poisons the wellspring of contentment and trust. Complaining has a similarly corrosive effect. It is the verbal expression of dissatisfaction, ingratitude, and a lack of faith in God's sovereignty. The story of the Israelites in the wilderness stands as a stark, perpetual warning against this destructive habit. Throughout their journey, despite miraculous provision, they frequently grumbled and complained about their circumstances, their leaders, and even God Himself. Numbers, chapter 14, verses 27 through 30, records God's stern response to their persistent grumbling: "How long shall I bear with this evil congregation who complain against me? I have heard the complaints which the children of Israel make against me. Say to them, As I live, says the Lord, just as you spoke in my hearing, so I will do to you. The carcasses of you who have complained against me shall fall in this wilderness, except Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun." Their complaining literally delayed and, for an entire generation, denied their entry into the promised land, a land flowing with abundance. This biblical narrative profoundly illustrates that while gratitude builds bridges to wealth and opportunity, complaining builds impenetrable walls of limitation and spiritual stagnation. In the business context, envy is particularly insidious. It leads to wasted energy and precious time spent resenting competitors' successes rather than learning from them, celebrating innovation, or focusing on one's own unique value proposition. Instead of analyzing what a successful competitor is doing right and adapting those lessons, with integrity, to one's own business, envy compels us to simply stew in bitterness, or worse, engage in unethical practices out of a desire to catch up or tear others down. This is a path to self-sabotage, not sustainable growth. The biblical counterprinciple to envy is profound and liberating. Rejoice with those who rejoice, as taught in Romans, chapter 12, verse 15. This is an active choice to celebrate the success of others as if it were your own, not out of hypocrisy, but out of a genuine belief in God's boundless goodness and the understanding that success is not a zero-sum game. There is more than enough for everyone. Here's a practical challenge for you, starting today. When you see someone else achieve a financial breakthrough, acquire a new asset, or experience significant business success, resist the immediate temptation to compare or feel a pang of jealousy. Instead, consciously and deliberately pause, and offer a prayer of genuine thanksgiving to God. Declare aloud, "Thank you, Lord, for showing me what's possible. Thank you for showing me what you can do for your people. If you can do it for them, you can do it for me." This simple, powerful declaration shifts your heart from jealousy to joy, from scarcity to possibility. It aligns you with God's flow of abundance, demonstrating your faith and trust, and subtly inviting that same blessing into your own life. Ask yourself, how much of my financial struggle has been exacerbated by unspoken complaints about my circumstances, my income, or my perceived lack? And conversely, what power might be unleashed in my life if I genuinely celebrated every financial breakthrough I witnessed in others, transforming envy into a catalyst for my own confident expectation? Embracing this counterintuitive wisdom, eschewing envy and complaining for gratitude and celebration, is not just a spiritual exercise, it is a critical strategic move that clears the path for God to pour out His abundant blessings into your life and business, opening doors to opportunities you never imagined possible. Part 8, Certainty and Trust. Why unwavering faith fuels financial breakthroughs. We have journeyed through the destructive nature of envy and complaining, recognizing them as silent saboteurs of wealth and opportunity. Now, let us pivot to their antithesis, the powerful catalysts that actively draw divine provision and catalyze financial breakthroughs, unwavering faith, expressed through certainty and trust. The spiritual principle is clear: money, like many blessings, flows most abundantly where trust lives. The book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, offers a foundational blueprint for this. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths. This passage is not just spiritual platitude, it is a profound guide for financial success. Financial breakthroughs, those moments of unexpected increase or open doors, often occur precisely when individuals stop panicking about lack, cease trying to manipulate circumstances out of fear, and instead, intentionally choose to trust that God's provision is already in motion, that His supply line is already active, and that His timing is perfect. It is a shift from striving in anxiety to resting in confident expectation. Let us clearly define faith in this context. Biblical faith is not a passive waiting for something to fall into your lap. It is a bold expectation and a courageous action taken in reliance upon the unshakable certainty that God will honor His promises. It is the conviction that He is true to His word, regardless of what our immediate circumstances suggest. It is seeing the invisible and believing the impossible. Consider the vivid illustration of Peter stepping out of the boat in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 14, verse 29. When Jesus invited him to come, Peter did not remain paralyzed by the raging storm or the seemingly impossible feat of walking on water. He took action based on trust in Jesus' voice. Amidst fear, he made a conscious choice to step out onto the waves. And for a moment, he walked on water. This profound example shows that faith-filled action, even when accompanied by human fear, unlocks supernatural possibilities. Similarly, in the financial realm, true trust in God's provision empowers us to take calculated, faith-filled steps, investing time, effort, and money into opportunities, even when others around us are paralyzed by fear, doubt, or the prevailing economic climate. While they shrink back, we, armed with divine certainty, step forward. This principle translates powerfully into business and entrepreneurship. Trust transforms perceived risk into purposeful action. When we operate with certainty in God's guidance, we are empowered to make strategic decisions that others might deem too bold or unconventional. It means believing that our current work, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, is fertile ground for exponential growth when it is truly aligned with God's principles and His will for our lives. This trust isn't blind, it is an informed conviction that God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating circumstances, opening doors, and connecting us with the right people and resources to fulfill His purposes. To cultivate this unwavering trust, our prayer life must shift from desperation to a focused pursuit of clarity and strategy. Instead of merely begging for money, our prayers should become, "Lord, give me clarity to see the opportunities you are setting before me. Grant me the wisdom to discern your strategy. Show me how to create more value, how to serve others better, and how to multiply what you have already placed in my hands." This is a prayer for insight, capacity, and direction, rooted in the understanding that riches and honor are with me, enduring wealth and righteousness, as Proverbs, chapter 8, verse 18, declares, speaking from the mouth of wisdom itself. When our prayers are focused on aligning with God's wisdom, we actively build our capacity to receive and manage His financial blessings. In conclusion, financial miracles and breakthroughs are not random occurrences, they follow a divine pattern. They manifest when faith and action meet, when our certain trust in God's promises fuels our diligent efforts and strategic decisions. Certainty is the missing link for many, the unwavering conviction that God is faithful, that He desires our prosperity for His glory, and that as we act in obedience and wisdom, His provision is already flowing. Embrace this certainty, step out in faith, and watch as God directs your paths toward unprecedented financial abundance. Part 9: Practical Steps to Make Money God's Way, Actionable Strategies. We have thoroughly explored the profound principles that underpin God's design for prosperity, moving from the deceptive nature of desperate prayers to the empowering truth of building a vessel, cultivating an abundance mindset, and embracing unwavering trust. Yet, all this profound understanding, all this spiritual illumination, remains potential until it is translated into tangible action. The Apostle James, in chapter 2, verse 17, leaves no room for ambiguity. Thus also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. Our prayers for financial breakthrough, our understanding of divine principles, must be met with diligent, practical steps. This session is about outlining a clear, blended plan, a synthesis of spiritual truth and actionable financial strategies, for making money God's way. The first practical step is to identify and leverage your God-given gifts and talents to create value. Every one of us has been uniquely endowed by the Creator with specific skills, passions, and insights. Making money God's way begins by discerning these inherent capacities and intentionally using them to serve others, solve problems, and meet legitimate needs in the marketplace. Whether this means starting a business aligned with your unique offering, engaging in freelancing services that utilize a specialized skill, or committing to learning a high-demand skill that increases your value, the underlying principle is consistent: service with excellence. Your work, whatever it may be, becomes an act of worship and a conduit of value, ultimately leading to financial reward. This shifts the focus from, "How can I get money?" to, "How can I best serve with what God has given me?" Secondly, prioritize financial education and literacy. While God gives wisdom, He expects us to apply ourselves to learning. Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 7, states, "Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting get understanding." This includes understanding the mechanics of money. I highly recommend engaging with practical financial literacy resources. Books like Dave Ramsey's The Total Money Makeover offer clear, actionable strategies for budgeting, aggressively tackling debt, and building wealth. Understanding the basics of personal finance, how to create and stick to a budget, the power of compound interest, the dangers of consumer debt, and fundamental investment principles, is non-negotiable for building a strong financial vessel. This knowledge empowers you to make informed decisions that align with God's principles of stewardship. Thirdly, embrace the power of small, consistent actions. Financial success is rarely the result of one grand gesture. It is the cumulative effect of disciplined, repetitive efforts. This means consistently saving a percentage of every income received, perhaps starting with a non-negotiable 10% for tithing and then an additional 10% for savings and investment. It means making wise spending choices daily, avoiding impulsive purchases, and consistently investing small amounts into a diversified portfolio. The gradual growth of money through consistent effort is a biblical principle. Proverbs, chapter 13, verse 11, reminds us, "Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow." Consistency, born of discipline and patience, is key to sustained growth. Fourth, advocate for diversifying your income streams. Placing all your financial eggs in one basket, whether it be a single job or one business venture, can be precarious. The wisdom of Ecclesiastes, chapter 11, verse 2, guides us, "Divide your portion to 7, or even to 8, for you do not know what disaster may happen on earth." This ancient wisdom speaks directly to the importance of multiple income streams. This could involve having a primary job while also running a side hustle, engaging in multiple investment ventures, or developing passive income sources like rental properties or digital products. Each additional stream, prayerfully planned and built on sound principles, adds resilience and accelerates your path to abundance. Finally, and perhaps most vitally, reinforce generosity as a core principle of your financial life. Giving is not merely an obligation, it is an act of worship, a declaration of trust, and a fundamental principle of God's economy that ensures wealth flows through you, not just to you. Jesus teaches us in Luke, chapter 6, verse 38, "Give, and it will be given to you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be put into your bosom. For with the same measure that you use, it will be measured back to you." Generosity, tithing your first fruits, and giving beyond that from a cheerful heart, aligns you with God's very nature as the ultimate giver. It keeps your heart soft towards God and others, preventing the love of money from taking root. It positions you as a conduit, enabling God to trust you with more, knowing you will bless others. To put these principles into immediate action, I challenge each of you to take one bold financial step today. Perhaps it's launching that small business idea you've been sitting on. Maybe it's meticulously setting up an automatic savings plan. Or perhaps it's committing to give cheerfully and consistently, knowing that your generosity is planting seeds for a future harvest. Whatever it is, take that intentional action, for it is in the doing that faith truly comes alive and unlocks the path to making money God's way. Part 10, Conclusion, the promise of becoming, not just begging, for wealth. We have journeyed together through the foundational principles and the practical steps for making money God's way. We've laid out the critical importance of action, the power of wise stewardship, and the profound shift in mindset required to align with God's design for abundance. Now, as we draw to a close, let us recap the central, transformative message that ties all these principles together, a truth that unlocks the promise of true, lasting wealth. Genuine, God-honoring prosperity is ultimately about becoming a faithful steward, a wise builder, and a generous channel of blessing, rather than merely begging for money to miraculously appear. This entire exploration has been about catalyzing a radical shift within us, a move from endlessly questioning why we lack, to actively identifying and creating value with what God has already provided. It is a paradigm shift from a posture of scarcity and desperation to one of empowered partnership with the Almighty, where we understand that our financial flourishing is intrinsically linked to our character, our diligence, and our commitment to His kingdom. We've seen that God's way of blessing business and finances is deeply rooted in principles of diligent stewardship, divine wisdom, unwavering trust, and proactive obedience. This stands in stark contrast to the futile exercise of pleading from a place of fear or desperation, which inadvertently communicates a lack of faith in God's capacity or willingness to provide. Let me reaffirm a glorious truth that should resonate deep within your spirit: the same God who prospered Abraham, making him exceedingly rich in livestock, in silver, and in gold, as Genesis, chapter 13, verse 2, so clearly states, the same God who elevated Joseph from prisoner to prime minister, empowering him to build one of the most powerful economic systems in history, as detailed in Genesis, chapter 41, the same God who showered King Solomon with unparalleled riches and honor because he sought wisdom first, as recorded in 1 Kings, chapter 3, that very same God is still actively in the business of multiplying what is faithfully placed in His hands. He is ready to multiply your ideas, your diligent work ethic, your willingness to learn, and every resource, no matter how small, that you commit to His purposes. He is the God of more than enough, and He delights in giving good gifts to His children who are ready to receive and steward them. However, to truly step into this promise, we must heed the warning embedded in the parable of the talents. Are there talents, God-given gifts, skills, ideas, or even financial resources that you have kept buried out of fear, procrastination, or a lack of clear vision? The servant who buried his talent, as we read in Matthew, chapter 25, was condemned not for losing it, but for failing to multiply it. This challenge is for you. Do not allow your gifts, your potential, or your present resources to lie dormant. It's time to take immediate, small, faith-filled steps this week to begin, or to further, build your vessel for abundance. Don't wait for a grand revelation or a perfect confluence of circumstances. Start creating it now. This might mean dedicating focused time to learn a new high-income skill, perhaps an online course or a certification. It could involve taking the definitive step to launch that side hustle you've been dreaming about, even if it's just a small, initial offering. Or it might simply be to create a detailed, God-honoring budget and rigorously implement a savings plan, even if it feels modest at first. Remember, faith works through action, and great breakthroughs are often built upon a consistent foundation of small, obedient steps. So, let this be your moment of decisive action. Stop waiting for the right moment to appear, for the perfect opportunity to fall into your lap. You are called to create that moment, to build that opportunity, in partnership with God. Take a deep breath, believe in the divine capacity within you, and make a powerful, public declaration, either to yourself, to a trusted friend, or even boldly in the comments below, for the purpose of accountability and affirmation. Declare with certainty, I am ready to become the faithful steward God intends me to be. I am ready to receive the wealth God has prepared for me, not for my own sake alone, but for His glory and for the blessing of generations. Embrace this declaration, take that first step, and watch as your financial life is transformed, becoming a powerful testimony of faith, not just fortune.